Call roll.
Okay, Dwight Hudson,
Present.
Elizabeth Zelinski,
Present.
Simona Hinton Derrickson,
Present.
Ann Mittman, Christy Stewart, Carla Lamar, Jennifer Moore. Present. Lakeisha Smith,
Present.
Ben Miller. See you, Ben. Can you talk?
And you're on mute.
Andrea Omario. Here, present.
Is there a quorum?
Yes.
All right, our first order of business is to approve the agenda. This was emailed to you and posted on the website. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Simona. May I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Anne. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. All right, we will approve the meeting minutes from our last meeting that were emailed to you. Are there any corrections to the meeting minutes that were emailed? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the previous meeting's minutes?
A motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Andrea. May I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Simona. All in favor of approving the previous meeting's minutes, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, I think we want to revisit the roll and call two more folks maybe who have joined us since we took the roll.
Christy Stewart here and Ben Miller.
I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will now move to the discussion items are on our agenda. Our next agenda item is the budget feedback presentation. Mr. Hudson is going to walk us through the proposed draft budget, which was shared with in your emails. And we'll have a discussion about how the budget aligns to our school's priorities. As we review the budget, it's important to focus on any adjustments from the district's recommended funding structure to support our school's goals. This is an important opportunity for us as the GO team to provide feedback and ensure that our school is making the most of its valuable resources.
Okay, so I will take it away. The meeting norms. This is a meeting of the GO team. Only members of the team may participate in the discussion. Any members of the public present are here to quietly observe. We invite and welcome contributions of every member and listen to each other. We follow the agenda as noticed on to the public and stay on task. And we will respect all ideas and assume good intentions. So budget feedback, presentation, and discussion. So the GO team budget development process is as follows. Step 1, data review. Step 2, strategic plan review. Step 3, budget parameters, strategic priorities. And we are here at step 4, budget choices. This was our roadmap to get here. We accomplished steps 1, 2, and 3, and we are on step 4. Step 5 is the GO team feedback meeting. Cluster superintendent review will happen next. We will have staffing conferences the week of the 24th to the 27th. After that meeting, they'll talk to me, they'll see what improvements, some changes, tell me some certain things. Provided that there are, there may be no changes, and then I come back to you all with that finalized budget, and that's the budget that we vote on March 14th, or whenever our next meeting is. We'll have a meeting before March 14th. So during the GO team feedback meeting, the principal will share the 25-26 strategic plan breakout, provide an overview of the school's draft budget, share updated tabs from the Excel template, and review, collaborate with the GO team on the comments, notes to explain the use of school level flexibility and budget allocations. So what you will see, you'll see where we may be allocated for 4 teachers or 5 teachers, but in order to accomplish another goal, we move those teachers. And so we'll talk about those as we go down the line. Why this meeting provides an opportunity for GO teams to discuss the principal's proposed budget and how it supports the school's programmatic needs and key strategic priorities for the 25-26 school year. It also provides the GO team the opportunity to review and provide feedback on proposed use of school level flexibility. And that is happening today before my boss gets it. So as you know, this is the plan. This was not made by me, but this is the plan that we followed for the last 5 years. And so whatever the superintendent comes up with next that we'll have to do, that's what we'll follow for the next years. So to speak, but this is where we pulled our strategic plan together. This is where the priorities came from originally, and then we have modified them somewhat. So this is the new ones. These are the new ones we reduced it by 2, changed some language in on the others. So let's take a look at those. Everyone agrees that's what we discussed last time and the changes?
The only thing I'm missing is we had that discussion about the arts, right? Where do we put it?
Right
On
there.
number 5.
It was right.
Okay.
It was embedded in number 5, and
Yes.
so we came down from 9 to 7. So the rationale, while we are a high achieving school, rationale for number 1 is while we are a high achieving school, we would like to see all student cohorts improve their growth and achievement in literacy. The rationale for number 2, which focuses on math, science, and technology, is our math achievement scores have decreased for the last few years. We will continue our focus on math, science, and technology, so our goal is to raise those scores. As far as creating a school-wide culture of high expectations, trust, and strong communication, this is a school-wide focus with the goal of increasing student growth across all student cohorts. For the 4th one, we use GMAS, MAP, and other school assessments to monitor and support each cohort of students. So we're looking at students by groups as well as our students as a whole. And remember, we can't move the whole if certain groups are falling behind. So we look to move everyone forward so the entire school can move as a school community. Align our IB curriculum to support our diverse population through academics, the arts, and social emotional learning. IB will continue to be the vehicle which will drive transdisciplinary instruction at Sarah Smith. We will continue with the program of inquiry and IB units next year and embed the new ELA standards. So keep in mind, it's a shift and the standards are changing, but we will continue to use IB. IB will be at the forefront of what we're doing. And so with that shift, we now have to take the new ELA standards and embed them in the units. Offer authentic and diverse professional learning. So we have set high expectations for teachers as well as students. To help teachers obtain their goals, we must provide training and monitor its implementation. And then the final one about implementing the WCI team with 100% fidelity. The rationale behind that is wraparound services are essential to students' academic and social emotional development. So we know that if any of that is missing, when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if they don't have food to eat, if they don't feel safe, then it's difficult to learn. So although it's not a direct factor in education, well, it is a direct factor in their education, even though sometimes it's not implicitly stated. So we talked about the zero-based budgeting process for signature and turnaround funds. That was a lot of fun. Read between the lines. Principals will develop proposed requests for the personnel and non-personnel they need to support the signature programs at our schools. And we will share, and we shared it last time, but I'll share it again, and then we'll discuss the funding that we received, because we've already received it. So I requested a signature program coach, 2 signature program world language teachers, dues and fees, and signature programming supplies and resources. I asked for $434,000. We were actually approved for $265,000. So signature program coach, dues and fees are covered, signature programming, supplies and resources, and we can shift this a little bit because they gave us enough to cover the coach. And the rest of it came directly out of our budget for the world languages teachers, but more or less, we got a good chunk. I wasn't expecting to get it all, and this is pretty much what every school received. So now we talk about our proposed changes. So when we look at earned, this is what we actually earn. When we look at funded, the district's recommendation staffing for positions where there's school level flexibility with the staffing position. Then we look at how I actually staff this for 26. And then finally, what's the difference between what was funded and what was staffed? And it says the principal must provide comments if there's a difference. We'll talk about that. So when we look, kindergarten, they have 6 teachers, we're funded for 6, we're staffed for 6, no changes. First grade is funded for 6, and we're staffed for 6 next year, no changes. As far as the staffing formula is, but you know that we did have 7 teachers on 6th grade, so we're going down 1.
Wait, sorry,
First
say that
grade.
again?
First grade, did I say 6?
Yes.
I went all the way back to 7.
Okay.
First grade. Second grade is remaining the same. Third grade is remaining 6, or well, actually we'll go down to 6. This 0.5, I believe that's part ESOL, so that's where that will be used. Fourth grade is staff funded for 5, but we're actually going up to 6 for a difference of 1. And 5th grade, they said we were staffed for 5, we're going up to 6. So we're pretty much going to do 6 all the way down. And the class sizes will range anywhere from 18 to 24.
Is that class size based on the current number of students or the projection?
The projections.
So I would just be curious on our current number of students, what that would do to class sizes.
And we'll have, I don't have it right off the top of my head. I could pull it, but the projections are very close.
So you
I
said
would say
18 to 25, I'm sorry,
18 to 24.
24.
Let's see. To be just a little bit more specific, kindergarten 21, first grade 19, second grade 22, third grade 18, fourth grade is the 24, and 5th grade is 18.
And just because I know the size of what that 4th grade class is currently in 3rd grade, I want everyone to know that if no children leave from the current 3rd grade class, next year's class sizes would be 26.5 students starting for traditional 4th grade classes. So that projection is counting on 9 students leaving.
Yeah.
So I just want that everyone to know that.
Okay. And 5th grade, we said 6. So then we have our reading teacher, which is the 0.5. I believe that's where that 3rd grade, that extra 0.5 is going. 2 art teachers, 1 for each campus. 2 music teachers, 1 for each campus. 2 PE teachers, 1 for each campus. And 2 world teachers, and world language teachers, although you see that it's a negative 180, that goes down below in our signature world language teachers. So that's where that comes back in. And then we have 3.5 gifted teachers, and it has a staff at 3 for next year. And then teacher of social emotional learning, we have 1, which that's going to come out of we're not funded for that, but we staff 1, and that will come out of the counselor extra position because they allotted us 2 counselors. Teacher EIP 1 through 3, staff of 1 on each campus.
Do you want us to wait till the end to ask questions? or-
No, let's do page by page.
Okay, perfect.
Then we have our teachers. These I can't touch.
Mhm.
So these are allocated to me, but we can't change that. And that's something that's based on the amount of students we have. So ESOL will have 4.5. Interrelated, we'll have 8.
What is it related?
Special ed.
Okay.
And lead teacher,
Wait,
special
that's
ed.
special ed or that's special, like, is that IRR? Is that special ed? Is that
IRR.
specials? Oh, okay.
It's mainly IRR. Lead teacher, of course, that's one person. And then we have I think down below, we have the autism room. One second. The autism teachers, that should be the last one.
The speech language pathologist, we have one now, don't we?
We have different people that are assigned from the district that flow,
Oh, I see.
but yes, we do have one. Yeah, and these last two are the autism teachers. So let's stop here and see if there are any questions.
The pathologist would not come out of our budget because they're coming from the district.
Right.
And then EIP kindergarten, you don't need an intervention in kindergarten?
Well, this is one of those things where we have to look at the flexibility because it would be nice to have them, but it would also cause class sizes to go up. Because we would have to pull from somewhere, and that more than likely would be a classroom teacher.
And you typically wouldn't know until
Half
yeah,
second semester.
yeah, you would need some data to be able to know.
Yeah, I think Mr. Warren is just now starting
Probably.
to see some kindergarten students.
And then, so the teacher that's 1 through 3, I mean, they do first, second, and come over here and do third,
They do K through 2.
K through 2.
When K is applicable later in the semester, but she does those students over there mainly first and second grade. And then we have one here that does 3 through 5.
Okay, then well, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's the way it's on the sheet, but we have one for the other building and then one for here.
Okay.
Mr. Hudson, you had spoken at one point about teachers that had some flexibility in their schedule. If we've got 2 ESOL teachers at our campus, what about looking at the numbers, like who serves second grade and who serves first grade? And if there's, you know, a disparate number, like let's say the second grade teacher has more students.
Mhm.
Could that ESOL teacher help with like kindergarten
Definitely,
reading stuff?
definitely.
Okay, I think that would be a good thing to try to put in place.
Yeah, there's a few things that we'll look at that are gonna be a little bit different for next year using the staff that we have here already.
And then the 3 gifted roles, I'm only aware of 2 gifted positions in the school.
So that's what they funded us for next year, provided that there's not a change, then we will have 3, so we'll have to hire an additional teacher.
But isn't that because we expect that number? I said we had.
We did have an increase, so that. is
No, I'm
probably-
sorry, I'm looking the wrong one. We do have 2. And so we didn't staff for that yet because that's why it's negative here, just to make the other classes smaller. So when you see this, that's a negative.
Not the
Gifted.
Gifted says staffed at 3.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at EIP.
Mhm.
So will we hire another gifted teacher?
Right,
I think we're gonna have
if
to,
needs be.
because we don't have enough gifted endorsed teachers.
Can you explain what that 0.5 with fourth is? What that comment means?
Or
For
fourth
teacher
grade.
gifted, it
Yeah, I
says
wanna-
0.5 fourth. At, teacher gifted, we were, funded 3.5, we're using 3, and this is 0.5 for fourth. Just kind of going off that we said fourth, Elizabeth is saying fourth is gonna be a little bigger.
I think what we did last year and for this year is we're using, 4th has 5. We're funded at 5 and we have 6, so I'm taking that 0.5 allocation and combining it with something else somewhere to make that whole teacher for 4th.
Okay. So none of these are like double duty, like these are all individual.
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
and so
like,
anything that's negative, when you see the parentheses that's
Mhm.
negative, that means we don't actually have it staffed for next year.
Okay,
And that's the difference, so it's negative. If you just see the regular number, like here, we're going above what it is. And if you just see the blank, that means we're doing exactly what we were staffed for. Or what we've been funded for. And we staff the same, so there's no difference. We good? All right. Moving on to some other positions, paraprofessionals. We earned 12, we're funded for 12, and that's the staff this year. Paraprofessional kindergarten, this is one of those things, and when I tell you I had to go over this over and over and over. So this has changed a little bit, but what the issue is they said that we, were funded for 6, but we actually have 6. So this staff 5, we actually have another person, they were just in another area, so when I put that person back in kindergarten, I was able to eliminate one position, and you'll see that at the end. So that one position brought more funds back in so that I could distribute it in other areas where we needed it. And then you see the note on the side, the 3 paraprofessionals, 2 paraprofessionals actually, and then 1 is a K para, so that goes up there. Then 1 principal funded, 1 staff, same thing with assistant principals, 2 and 2. There's some more battles that I'm gonna fight because the program administrator, I thought that was a position that should be funded, but sometimes they forget about us having 2 buildings, so I wanna make sure that that wasn't an accident. And so when I go to my staffing conference, I'll be asking about that, and, you know, gathering with some of the other principals to make sure we all ask that same question, because we're spending that out of our budget directly, we weren't staffed for that. So that's why there's a 1 here, because we've added that position, which is a needed position. School secretary, I'm forgoing that so that we can have more money to do certain things in the school, at least for now. Bookkeeper, we have 1. School clerk, we have 2, 1 at each campus. And to aid with,
Hey, I'm sorry, this is may I ask just what's the difference between the clerk and the secretary?
so the secretary, the clerk has just specific tasks, and the secretary really kind of helps the principal with everything that he needs.
Okay.
So the clerks are the ones that answer the phones up front, making copies. They may do some registration, enrollment, and things of that nature, while the secretary is there to support the principal.
Okay.
Let's see what else. Where are we? Bookkeeper, school clerk to 11 days. So we're funded at 2 for counselors, but 1 is we use at the other campus as the SEL teacher. We weren't funded for math coaches, but that's what the additional 1 is here. Readers and leaders are funded, so that's 1. Media specialists, we're funded it, we've earned 2, funded it 2, so we do have 2 in place. Parent liaison is not funded, but we have 1 to support us with those needs. Then we have 1 LPN, 1 RN as far as school nurses. This is our signature program coach that comes out of this stack, which although it doesn't show that it was funded, this is actually part of that IB funding that came back in. World language teachers, we have 2. And social workers, we have 1, as well as an SST specialist, and that helps with our students that are struggling and need remediation and things of that nature. This person here isn't coming out of our budget directly. This is coming from the district, and they share multiple schools, but that had to be placed on there. And then, of course, our school psychologist, which is ours, but I cannot adjust that. School resource officers, they're putting it in our budget for 2, so hopefully that's coming. We did have a new young lady come through today to visit and walk the building, and so more people are getting hired and more people are starting to visit, so we welcome those visits. Site managers, we have 1 for each building.
And that's more infrastructure, right?
That's, yeah, they're the, like, it's,
So,
well, I can't remember, a super, remember,
Yeah.
like in up north, we call them supers
Yeah.
for the building. So basically, they're the people that know the building inside out, and whenever there's a problem, that's who I call.
and then the custodians come from downtown?
They come from downtown as
Okay.
well. And it doesn't show here, but they're here, we have 4. Paraprofessionals for pre-K, this doesn't come out of our budget at all. It's a separate budget, but they have it here just for our knowledge and purpose. We have 2 each, 2 pre-K paras, 2 pre-K teachers. And then these are cafeteria workers, 4 food assistants, 2 assistant leads, and 2 cafeteria managers, and believe that's everyone. So do we have any questions before I go on to this next slide? It tells us to give a summary of changes, and the main thing that I was able to manage is everyone that wants to come back will be able to come back. Minimal changes were made to staffing, and we're gonna lose some people that are moving and things of that nature, and I know who they are, so that's actually gonna balance it out, so we don't have to let go of anyone that wants to be here. That's what it looks like for right now. So we added 1 part-time math teacher, and we added 2 part-time clerks. And we'll see that even though we didn't discuss it yet when we get to the non-staffing. I don't know why they have that on non-staffing, but it is. And then we removed 1 paraprofessional, 1 full-time clerk, and as we go into the staffing again, we split those into 2 part-time clerks so that both campuses can have someone during the high points of the day. And then we removed 1 first grade teacher and 1 5th grade teacher. But
So is the part-time math teacher to be hired?
to be hired,
And then why doesn't this say added gifted teacher?
because it should.
Oh, okay.
So we'll add that.
And is the part-time math teacher gonna be a floater, or is it gonna be like ICPC or?
We'll see where the most need is, but more than likely they'll be here.
And then when it says that we have a reading teacher, K to 5, what is what position is that? Is that new?
So
Is
it's
that-
4 to 5. That was the part-time reading teacher. She works over here. She has about 40 students that struggle with reading or need to be, their scores to improve in their reading that she pulls at different parts of the day and works with them. And she's currently here.
I'm sorry, on the gifted teacher, one more thought. Will we be able to do resource model then?
It all depends. We're still looking at what we'll be able to do. Next year, remember, we're still sticking with what we have. And then we're developing that plan next year for what we can do. And we may do some resource in a combination of different things, but we're still speaking about that. It's gonna be based on staffing, availability, and what's feasible. So this is our non-staffing overview tab. The non-staffing tab shows how funds are allocated for non-staff items in the school. There's school level flexibility for most of these items. And we have what's recommended, district's recommended amount to spend on that line item. Allocation, this shows how much the principal is proposing, the difference, and we'll talk about each tab as we look through. So, teacher stipends, we're gonna try to increase the amount of clubs next year. So we put 5,000 towards that, so that any teacher that has an interest and wants to do a club with a child after school, they can do that. We have 1,000 for secretary overtime for those times when I need the bookkeeper to work over or the clerks to work over. Contracted service for professional development. So this is when we need to send our teachers to certain trainings and things of that nature. Of course, foundation helps with a lot of this, but we put some money from our funds in and we may have to move them. But these are the placeholders for right now. Postage, 1,000, just to help with communication. 10,000 for web-based subscriptions and license. So if we see something that we particularly like that the students can use, we'll just pay for that. Because some of the things are going away because the school's budget is, not the school, the system's budget is also going down. So there were things that they allocated and gave us. They just purchased it for the entire district. Some of those things are going away. So if some of the teachers say, hey, I really like this, then we'll have to bring it back under our own funding or speak to foundation. District funded field trips. This is what they allocated to us. Teaching and other supplies. So when we need supplies for teachers, pencils, paper, things for experiments, things of that nature, this is the amount here. And we went higher than what the district said because I also took some of that IB funding for supplies and pushed it into this one, so it's all really the same bucket anyway. Media supplies. They,
What is that?
media supplies, you, I was hoping it was for you. So you and, of course, Ms. Frederick, we'll split that in half, and any books or any things that we may need for the media center, then we'll be able to use that. Dues and fees, I'll just put 400 because I remember last year we spent about 400 on competitions. So that was part of that, and then 100 for staff in case I have to be part of those organizations in order for the students to participate. Or if we have to purchase one per teacher. An example would be FLAG, the Foreign Language Association of Georgia. They require the teachers to have that, to be part of them before the students can participate in the spoken language contest. Dues and fees, signature programs. So that was 9,260. That's exactly what we asked for. The security grant has been given to us again. And so next year we'll have another 45,000 to spend around the buildings, both buildings. Unfortunately, that's it for both buildings. So we'll have to divide it up. Other stipends, that goes with the academic stipend. We have some stipends for some of the teachers that work after school, and then the academic stipends are for our leadership team. So everyone on the leadership team earns a stipend every year. Teacher subs, they said this is 10 days. I put in a little bit more to cover subs. This may not be enough, but hopefully it is.
What do you mean 10 days?
So we have to put in, cover 10 days per teacher.
Every teacher.
Yeah.
Let's see. 10 days.
I don't know if that's every teacher, but they calculated a number in there, 10 days, and that's the amount of money we have for that.
Can I ask a question? On the last one, the 9,260 for the signature program versus that 8,837 that you said was for IB, are those
So
all
the
IB, or is that what is that?
So this 8,837 is what I spent above what the district recommended of 39,600.
Mhm.
And that's just for, it said for IB materials.
Uh-huh.
But we've already, the money that we were granted, and we'll look at that in a minute, we already went over that, so that we were allowed to move that money into just supplies in general. Or it can go, we could technically
Okay.
split them, but there's really no need.
Okay.
It's all really the same bucket when we look at it. And so this is supplies, strictly supplies. Then when we look at, what was the other one?
Is that top one, the dues and fees signature program?
So these are
That's
actually
like-
the fees that we
Oh,
pay
like
yearly
the
to IB.
accreditation and stuff, okay,
Mhm.
okay.
That we pay, that's the right amount, right?
That's just the annual fee, yeah.
Just
Yeah.
the fees, okay,
And then it goes up more in the evaluation year.
gotcha.
How does this compare to what we've spent so far this year on substitute teachers and school supplies, for example?
Well, so school supplies, we still have some more to spend. So they've been very good at like, and they tell me, hey, we have this much, we need to spend this much, so that by the end of the year, it's all spent. And we really didn't have a lot of money for school supplies this year in the budget, but we made it through this far. Subs, I think is way under. We've had to add more money to that. So we'll work on figuring out how to reduce that and how to do better with that next year, but it's under.
And that's also, like, it doesn't matter why they're out, or does it?
What matters is FMLA versus just being out. If it's FMLA, the district pays for that.
Okay.
If it's just being out,
But I mean,
a
if it's
sick
school
day here,
business or
right,
sick.
that all comes out of us.
What if you're getting subs to cover teachers' rooms for, like our eligibility meeting?
That comes
If
out
that's,
of our
we
budget.
pay that,
Mhm.
that's not the district.
That we pay that. So eventually the goal would be to have enough money in there. And we've talked about this for 2 years and it hasn't happened because the pot is dry at the end of the year. What we want to do is eventually get to the point where we have enough sub money to relieve teachers for a day or a half a day and let them plan their IB units together as a whole. So that's the eventual goal, but we have to like get better with conserving our sub money. Hourly cafeteria monitors, that's 38 a year with 3. hourly math teacher, that's the one that we talked about adding in, that's 56,550. And then the hourly school clerk, this is the two clerks divided, that's their salary combined. Any questions about any of this? Yes.
Okay, I have some questions, and mainly it's just for, just clarification. Can you tell me what CTE teachers stands for?
Career and technical education, so that's high school mostly.
Okay, well, okay, and then EIP teachers,
Early intervention program.
okay. And then, so can you clarify the difference between the EIP teachers, the IRR teachers, and the special ed teachers in terms of how they're certified, how they're used, and how they work with students?
Okay, so EIP teacher, early intervention program, when you look at MAP, there's a threshold and I believe it's below 20% for most cases. If a student is struggling in right now just reading, they're struggling in reading, then we refer them over through a process and they go through the early intervention program, which that teacher pulls them at certain points during the day and works with them on reading. An IRR teacher, interrelated, is a special education certified teacher, but they may move between co-teaching, resource. They may have their class where they pull students for the day or for a point of the day, and then they also go into the classrooms to support sometimes. And then special ed, when you think of like the autism classroom teachers or a teacher that has resource all day. So the IR teachers and the special ed teachers really have about the same certification, but they can pull students at different times, and they're really at times they can be interchangeable depending on what they're doing and how they're serving the kids.
One more question.
Mhm.
Is there any way, and then like, well, I know what ESL, is there any way that I'm not, I don't know this, but if like, could an IRR teacher be a classroom teacher?
Yeah.
Could an EIP teacher be a classroom teacher?
Yes, I mean, the two that we have, I mean, well, both. The EIP teacher was a classroom teacher.
I'm saying like in terms of like how our school functions, could we
Oh, you're
say,
saying, yeah,
like, if we have, we're, you know, like if we have, could we double dip? Could we say like, we need another classroom and we have this certified IRR teacher that could
So
take a class?
there are rules to
Okay.
EIP.
Okay,
It's
Because-
class size and.
Yep, they have to be
Okay.
under a certain class size. The students have to qualify based on, based on their data. And I think we can blend them, but we need special permission. I would have to
Okay.
see. There are rules to that. So
Yeah.
we did have that the first year, but then it was more useful to have that teacher pull out the kids because then she could touch more students instead of just having one class. IRR, they're regular certified teachers as well. They just have special ed certification on top of that. So they could teach a class as well.
so if we have 8 IRR teachers, to me, that sounds like a lot.
Well, no.
Okay.
So
it's
those,
not-
If they're
those
federal-
IRR teachers are based on students' disabilities.
So
And
it's
they're,
like,
so like, for example, if you have a student that is considered EBD, emotional, then you can have more than, I think, 8 students in that one class. So it depends
Okay.
on the students that are in the class as well and what their needs are. Remember, these are kids that are really struggling,
Mhm.
so they get the extra funding, they get extra
Yeah.
funding, one,
yeah,
and they get the attention that they need to be able to work with them to do specially designed instruction and to do all the things that they should need to hopefully help catch them up. But,
gotcha.
these are kids that are really struggling that we
So
have
that's
in
why
those
they push
classes.
in? Is that?
Sometimes they
okay.
push in,
Okay.
it depends on the
It's the
IEP.
least,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
it's
just,
their
it's the.
based
path
on
that
their
it is to- Yeah.
IEP and their least
Requirement.
restrictive environment.
Mhm.
So, and there's segments that, there's certain amount of segments they have to have, and then, and
Okay.
depending on what subject it is, and those, so
Yeah.
it's.
And it could be a mix, so you could have a child that has an IEP,
Mm.
and their main areas of struggle are math and science. And those struggles are so severe that they need to have resource, so they're actually pulled out and they go to a teacher separately.
Mm.
But for reading and social studies, there might not be any issue, so then they can do co-taught, or they may not need anything at all. But it's all based, it's individualized, so it depends on each and every single student what they need. Okay?
Is
Good
this,
question.
is this where we can ask about, positions and switching around, and we're not there yet.
So, what do you mean?
Okay, so I'm back on my reading coach, and there's only one, the readers are leaders, that would be the reading coach, right?
That's the reading coach.
And there's one, so if we need two to support the first strategic priority, that comes out of what?
So that's where the Go Team, we have to make
Okay.
choices. We have to make choices because I honestly don't see where we can reduce the amount of classes that we have on any of the grades, because I think I went as low as I could or as high as I could, depending on, how you look at it. And so when we start thinking about, okay, well, we really need a readers or leaders or another reading coach, where do we pull from? Then there's a lot to look at to see where could that possibly happen.
Okay,
And then it's not just a one-to-one, so it's not like just moving a teacher to a coach, because a coach makes more money. So then we have to see if a teacher's, let's say, for example, is 90,000, where do we get the other 59,000 to make up for that salary?
sure.
Are you looking for a reading coach to coach the teachers, or are you looking for someone to work with students on reading?
Work with students.
So
Okay,
That's
that's not a
another
reading
coach.
coach.
So,
Yeah.
okay,
So a reading coach would be, that's what the
They
reading
coach
coach is. The reading,
teachers,
they
don't
coach
work with
teachers.
students.
okay, well then what are you
Oh,
looking
they could.
for then?
Well, we'll
We'll come back to it,
we'll
okay?
get to that. That's coming. But good questions. And so we talked about the clerks. We talked about everything here. So then this is descriptions of just the strategic plan, breakout categories,
They have-
priorities, strategies, requests, and amount. And I pretty much talked about all of this as we went through. So develop a literate community in which students read and write with clarity and fluency across the curriculum. This is just our 7 and the ask. So I requested a part-time reading teacher, which we already have on staff. This is the cost, $65,000. Now, this person does work with the students, to
Okay,
your question. Offer rigorous curriculum with an enhanced focus on the integration of math and science. This is where I've asked for a math person, because we do have one reading person, but we do have students that have challenges with math as well. So if we can replicate what she's doing with reading and bringing someone to work with the students with math, that's why we have that. Create a school-wide culture of high expectations, trust, and strong communication that includes all stakeholders. Coming from the strategies, utilize the IB learner profile to guide instruction and rigor. Continue with an IB coach. And that's the cost of an IB coach, plus the 2 clerks for the communication aspect of it. So these things here, none of them are asking for additional funds. They're just the rest of our priorities and the strategies that we'll use in order to gain them. All the funds have been accounted for in these first 3.
So the ones in the amount column are things that when you go into the conference with the assistant superintendent, that's what y'all would discuss, that we're asking for those.
So it's more like when we go into that, they say, okay, here's your strategic plan. Here's what you hired. And if they see something that doesn't align, like, okay, why did you do this? I have to be able to explain that. And if I can't explain it, then they'll say, okay, well, perhaps you don't need to do that. Now, another thing that happened, like last year, for example, we had a budget shortfall this year, so it didn't happen. But my boss said, well, listen, you keep talking about this emphasis on reading. And she told me one of the things she did at her school was she hired a part-time reading teacher. So, or tutor, so she had multiple ones. So that's what we tried to do. But when the funding came around and we lost money because of enrollment, then we weren't able to do that. But that was part of the plan, to hire a couple more teachers. We were able to do 1. But the goal would be, hopefully, if I had all the money in the world, I would do a math teacher here, a math teacher at PC, same thing with reading. And then if that showed good results, then I might increase that to see how we can help the students even more and touch more students that need enrichment as well as remediation.
Going back to Simona's question about reading help, of the ESOL teachers, interrelated teachers, how many of them are doing reading help with students? Do all of them do reading or? no?
I mean, they all do reading as part of their instruction. So EIP is definitely reading. We don't do EIP math yet. Yet.
So those are-
And that's one at each campus.
What's that? The
That's
EIP
EIP,
reading,
yeah.
yes.
We have EIP at each campus, and this year, what we did with our ESOL teachers, the students that didn't qualify for EIP, because there are certain things they have to qualify.
Yeah.
So, but still are struggling, and the teacher said, they're still struggling. And they've got every intervention in place that we can do. The ESOL teachers have pulled small groups for, more phonics, phonemic awareness and things at both campuses. So we went through and did schedules for them. So when they're not doing ESOL, they're doing small groups for reading for the kids that aren't already in EIP or are just having some struggles in the classroom.
But-
So we are already doubling up in that way as much as we can.
And they have to fulfill their they have to maximize their ESOL schedule first because that's funded from outside of us. That's Title III. They have to maximize that first, but if that's maximized, then we're able to pull them in some other places. So we look at this is our budget by function, and you'll see how much we spend on instruction, pupil services, improvement of instructional services, staff training, media services, school admin, maintenance and operations, and transportation. So it breaks it down by FTE, full-time equivalent. So these would be the teachers that we earn and the staff that we earn. Each teacher should be one. And so this would be the total number. This is the budget overall that's spent on that. This is what it comes to per pupil. And so when you add all this up, that gives you the overall what we spend per pupil, but this just breaks it down how it goes for each student. I mean, each child, how much we're spending. And then that's just a graphical representation of where our money is going. And as you see, almost 80% of our money is going directly to instruction, another 5% for pupil services, another 4% for improvement of instructional services. School admin, 8%, maintenance and operations, about 3%, transportation, we have a very thin slice of the pie, but it says 0.
Is that for buses? What does that mean?
I guess that would be the field trips, that's the only thing that we put in out of. Okay, so questions for the GO team to consider and discuss. Does this budget proposal as a whole effectively support our school's strategic priorities? Speak up, Dr. Hinton.
From what I'm hearing, especially with our strategic priority #1, it sounds like we are piecemealing together support for reading instead of dedicating an actual line or two to reading. But I don't know how realistic that is.
Okay.
And piecemealing, like just a description saying we pull some of the ESOL teachers and they have a few hours. Then we'll pull teachers from another area and they have a few hours. But do you need dedicated reading?
So we have we have 2.5. We have the EIP teacher K through 2.
Mhm.
I would even dare to say we have 4.5. We have the dedicated EIP teacher for K through 2. We have the dedicated EIP teacher for 3 through 5. We have the teacher that's here working halftime with the students that pull students all day. She has about 40 struggling students, and then 3.5 rather. And then we have our readers or leaders coach, which is working with the students the teachers on reading and supporting in that way to help improve reading instruction overall as a school.
So with the EIP, you do have to qualify, and to qualify, you also have to be evaluated, correct?
Well, everyone gets screened through the map, and we use the map as our screener.
No.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's not a barrier. So
No.
using MAP, those students will be seen, but then there's always a gray area of students. Let's say a student has a 25%, not necessarily the 20, so then they go through whom?
So there's sometimes the teacher recommendations and sometimes they just go through the teacher.
Okay,
So sometimes a teacher may suggest, hey, do you want to look at this kid? This child is struggling, and we may have room to work with that. But for the most part, they get served within the classroom as well. Unless they are ESOL, which they get served through that program, or special ed, they get served through that as well.
I'm just worried about those,
In the gray area.
yeah,
I hear you.
that can easily be missed because they don't meet criteria when the bar is already so low.
Mhm.
Well, I don't think we should overlook the 36 qualified teachers that we have working with them and becoming
They're
trained in working with all levels of students and differentiating and
But then that can be a
professionalism.
complaint of other parents who are saying a lot of effort is being spent to this group. And maybe my student may need to be stratified to a more advanced curriculum, but they have to catch up this group. And that's why I'm asking, do you need a dedicated support to pull those students who are gray?
I think what we have in the best of worlds, right?
Yeah.
We would have that. And we need to look at also keeping in mind how gifted is going to play into that next year and see how we can work that to even help with the kids that need to be enriched, right?
Right.
But what we have, because we really have to think about the whole picture.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear you, that is a priority, but it's gonna be, and this is a discussion, and this is not, this is a discussion.
Yeah.
If there's somewhere to pull from, then we have to start making the hard choices, like as a team, say, okay, well, do we really need this in order to function? Can we use this instead of that? Do we want to buy, like, for example, do we want to use our funds and allocate them towards another reading teacher, but then it takes away from something, so we have to decide what do we take away from? And that's the difficult part of budgeting, to be honest. That's like, how do you give a happy medium where everyone is served when we don't have limitless money? Because if we had limitless money, it'd be easy. We'd have another 2 teachers. And to keep that in mind, I'm gonna jump ahead just a little bit. I'm sorry. So something disappeared off oh no, it's there. So when we look at the math, science, technology, reading, I did ask for 56,500 each for additional teachers if I don't have to use my reserves for anything next year. So if we hit our enrollment and everything else is fine, then I will have this amount of money, and I am requesting additional teachers, like part-time teachers that can come in and support the children at that time. But as it stands right now, based on not, hoping for this, because I try not to, especially another thing that we have to consider is if we don't hit our enrollment, instead of losing a teacher, I can say pull from my reserves. So I always leave, I learned that a long time ago, leave your reserves alone and let it be a backup just in case you have to lose a teacher that following year. That way you don't lose a teacher, then we have to go, okay, now we're breaking down a class and dividing kids out. We try as much as we can not to do that. So that's why I don't touch those reserves or make a serious plan for it until, a dedicated plan for it, until we hit that next year and we know that we've made it after our 15-day or the 10-day count. So now, as we go back to that, just to know that, have that in your mind in the background, that there is a possibility that we'll be able to bring in someone else. But as it stands, this is where we are now, unless you see somewhere or you all think of somewhere that we will be able to pull from, still serve the students adequately, but then also step a little bit closer to our goal of serving everyone that needs needs it for reading.
I.
And we're talking, let me say
I'm
this,
about to say.
we're talking positions, not people.
Yes,
We're strictly talking positions, not people.
there are two campuses. I am curious why we need 3 gifted teachers for 2 campuses.
Because
What
there's
does,
300 gifted students.
There was an additional this year.
where's the third person?
This is for next year.
Next year.
Where will the third person be?
That,
Over here.
it depends. That's why, all of that is in the air because when we look at the numbers, we see where they are. I'm thinking that person might have to split campuses, but it's not 100% sure. Once we sit down and plan and look at where our students are and we're working the schedule, then we'll say, okay, this person would be good in this position, or they may have to split buildings in order to serve all those students.
Okay.
Because this year alone, we had how many more students that qualified for GET?
119,
Like I've never seen it before. So,
and I haven't even finished kindergarten. We're testing 45. I'm gonna guess half of them make it. I think it might, I don't know if this is appropriate, but if there's I don't know how to do it, like with the rules of order, but to request that we have like a committee to work on talking about gifted going forward over the next year or two, because one of the ideas that was shared at the meeting yesterday for the district is looking at some sort of a hybrid, under collaboration still, but a hybrid situation for schools that don't have enough gifted endorsed teachers. If we could do a consistent scheduled like block. I know that they used to do social studies, like they left the room at the social studies time. And then that is another way of giving a very qualified, trained teacher in the classroom to have that commitment, that time they know. Because the other part that we hear is it's really hard to sometimes move a gifted student from point A to point B, and or to show growth in that little growth quadrant. So it would be on us if they didn't grow, So I'm thinking that maybe something like that to kind of
So
get
that,
our
that really
heads
will fall
together.
into scheduling, that will fall into like admin and so forth, because scheduling, the amount of teachers that are gifted, all of that, we have to look at all of those little pieces, so that would be something school-wide, or not school-wide.
Right, but I still think it impacts, where the rubber meets the road too. It really impacts the day-to-day of how we implement the program, and how does this help the classroom teacher and the students, every student in the classroom, not just our gifted population, but those that are, because obviously if there's some that are out of the room, then that teacher can work with those. And I think that consistency makes a difference.
Okay.
See another place that there's reaching room. Okay.
A bookkeeper.
I just, sorry, I have one, maybe comment. So first, I want to just thanks, Principal Hudson for taking the time to go through this carefully and explain to us where we were to start and then where you've gotten us to now. I can see you put a lot of time and effort into this, and these are really difficult decisions and judgments to make, and I appreciate your experience and kind of professional knowledge on this. So thank you for bringing this to us. Looking at it, my interest going forward is if we can try to evaluate or keep an eye on the productivity of 2 part-time teachers relative to 1 full-time teacher in the reading zone. I think that's a really creative way to address our priorities, and I'd love to get maybe even their feedback on how they feel like their productivity and impact is on the students in a non-full-time role, so that we can continue to evaluate this idea going forward in future years.
Thank you.
I'm asking for clarification.
Mhm.
A bookkeeper, will that be similar to like a registrar?
No, that's our financial person.
A financial person? And then the program administrator wouldn't do financial and budgets, right?
No, that's the the
Okay,
administrator for the PC.
Okay. Administrator for the PC.
So you
That's
said you
what
were
Jessica,
asking
that's what
about that.
Jessica does.
Okay.
So she's the, like the principal for that building in my absence.
So you said you were asking
Okay.
about that, cause you said, like it wasn't funded, but you were gonna ask if that was like an
Yeah,
oversight.
we're
Is that
gonna
what-
kind of get together as
Okay.
a group and say, hey, why wasn't this funded when we have two buildings?
Okay, gotcha.
So I'll
That could
call
be
my other friends and tell them that the same thing.
Has there been any more discussion on departmentalization of like at least maybe third through fifth? Just kind of thinking that those kids, cause then you could focus a lot of the, I just, if we can't work around a budget, maybe we could get creative with how our days look.
And we did talk about that, and we're probably in the final stages of that, because we've spoken to the grade levels, and we're just gonna talk about making some decisions and looking at the parents. Because there's a lot that's involved with that, because it's not just a matter of saying, let's departmentalize, because then we need someone that is strong in math and science to pair up with someone that's strong with ELA and social studies, and making sure that all those pairs work. But we're definitely looking at that for next year. We'll have a concrete answer soon. All right. So back to the questions. I'm sorry. How do the principal's proposed changes, this is not working out for me. Okay, how do the principal's proposed changes directly support priorities in our strategic plan? Can we clearly connect each adjustment to a strategic goal? If new positions, resources, or programs are being added, what data or feedback supports these changes? How will we measure their impact? What trade-offs are involved? Are any current programs or resources being adjusted or reduced? And how will that affect our students and staff? Those are our 4 questions.
I think the slide that you had where you clearly showed where each of those connect to the goals. I think focusing on the how will we measure their impact would be a really good place to keep in mind. Kind of like what Ben said, just kind of focusing on where, like, we're spending this money, are we looking specifically at the payoff that we're getting? Not just as like the school as a whole, but like the specific students that we're spending the money to support. And like, how would we measure that?
District and cluster priorities. How do these proposed changes align with district and cluster priorities? Do we foresee any challenges or misalignments? If the district has allocated funds for specific initiatives, for example, signature programs, how are those reflected in our budget? And if we are sharing staff positions, nurse, counselor, teacher, how will this affect student support and service delivery at our school? So right now, there's only one position, and that's the reading position that we share with another school. I think everything, and speech, like special ed related services, but other than that, we only have one position that's actually shared. The part-time people are just that part-time, so that's different than like the half teacher that's shared.
But as far as like, we'll have 2 nurses, a counselor and an SEL at each campus.
Mhm.
And then we'll have clerks at each campus.
Right.
And then what were some of the other ones that we've had to share in the past?
Media specialists.
Okay, so we'll
We've
have 2 at
shared.
each campus. Okay, good. So that's good.
So I jumped ahead to this, but we see where that is, and we will have flexibility in that too as the year comes in. But it's mainly about getting more part-time teachers in if we need to help support us with what we need as far as reading and math.
And I would add, you know, I'm gonna keep advocating, if we get to fourth grade next year and there are 27 students in classes, because we haven't seen transfers out of the school. I mean, I don't know at what point you say we use some of our reserve to get another fourth grade teacher, because 27 students is very difficult to differentiate. It's very difficult to manage behavioral issues. So I want us to keep that in mind as well.
Definitely. I think I'll turn it back over to you now.
Yeah, that's right. So we have gone over the budget, how these align with our priorities. We have reviewed all of these. I mean, at this time, we can continue to discuss, but I would now take a motion to approve the draft budget. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve the draft budget? And we can continue discussion after that if you want to.
So just,
Yeah. Question. Mhm.
so from here, if we approve the draft, you go to your meeting and then get information, and then we come back and we approve it after they approved it?
Yes, because they may make some changes.
Okay.
So first, my boss will look over it, and then we'll have our staffing conference. And those are the two possible places that he'll suggest some changes, or it may happen in the staffing conference. Then, once that's done, if I make any changes, we will approve that, or we may come back and then I'll bring back exactly what we had before. We'll ask to vote for final draft of the, vote on the final budget. So right now, we're voting on a draft that possibly can change after speaking to my boss or speaking to the people during the staffing conference, which will be my boss and HR and things of that nature.
In that case, I motion to approve the draft budget because I think it's the best. a good one. And I keep looking.
Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Do we have further discussion about the draft budget?
Can I just ask one question? So when you go and when you meet, what's gonna be kind of on your radar of being like, what's the wiggle room here? I'm trying, like, if you're trying to work with what we have, I'm just kind of wondering like where your
Sometimes
next step will be.
it's really just about, they'll look at the plan and just, they're kind of advising me then at that point. And then I either have to stand and say, no, this is the reason why, or this is the reason why not. So it's really more of a conversation about how does this align with your strategic plan? And how does this align with the needs that you have as a school?
Okay.
So we start to really look at, hey, this data has not been looking good, math. We could talk about, the drop in math, and this is why I'm asking to bring in a math person to support us. Or just justify why I'm making the suggestions that I'm making, but they're pretty much based on the fact that we need to grow in math and we need to grow in reading. And that's been a concern, as well as the data shows that we need additional support with that. So putting that support right towards the students in the classroom is the reason why we went with and remember, we lost funds this year, but with the little bit that we were able to move and maneuver to get some more people working directly with the students.
I don't know if this is where to add this, it's just a comment, but I wholeheartedly agree with the keeping class size low. Been doing this for a lot of years, and I just think that is something that makes a huge difference in terms of getting to the students, getting to know them, getting to know how they work, what they need. And I think that's something that, in looking at our strategic plan, the culture of high expectations, trust, and strong communication, I think the high expectations, it's hard to have high expectations for everyone in your class. If you have, it's reading, math, and get everybody on the same page, but I think that's a really important one. That's fine. 2 cents for the afternoon.
Other discussion? Ben, no other discussion from you?
They sent an email that said, please let him in the meeting.
Uh-oh.
No, that was earlier.
Oh, I thought I just got it.
Oh,
It's 4:10, so it just happened.
Well, he's,
Yeah,
There?
there he is. There he is. So it just happened.
No.
I was right.
Thank you.
sorry, Ben.
No, it's on me. Thanks for letting me back in.
So Ben, I don't know if you were here for when we took a motion, but it has been motioned to vote on this draft budget and it has been seconded. Do you have any further discussion before we take a vote on this draft budget?
I do not, but thanks for asking.
You're welcome. Okay, so we are now voting to accept this draft budget. All in favor, please say aye.
I
All opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, we have approved the draft budget. Okay, and now we move to information items. Mr. Hudson?
So our next meeting in March is the budget approval meeting. So during that meeting, we'll discuss the budget, review the budget, and we'll update it based on feedback from the staffing conference and our associate superintendents and key leaders. After review, GO Team will need to take action, meaning vote on the FY26 budget. Principals will present the final budget recommendations for GO Team approval. All approval meetings must be held after staffing conferences and must be approved by March 14th. So I think, are we set for the 7th?
we're set
Yeah.
for the third.
I was gonna say, which one's the next one? You have it written down.
I've got the 13th,
Sorry.
I had the 13th.
Okay.
which is also
What's it?
science.
It's size.
Science.
It shouldn't be a big deal. We'll have to get in and out.
Mr.
Science
Hudson,
night.
can I ask for another, this is a non-budget, I'm not gonna suggest a budget, I just wanna know a function.
Okay.
What goes on in SEL?
So SEL is the social emotional learning class
Yes,
where they work on, just how to interact with each other, self-awareness, self-management, discipline, and things of that nature, where they're learning some of the components of SEL.
and
It's-
that's a, like an IB requirement?
It's not.
Okay,
It's a special though.
okay,
So part of the way that the teachers plan together is all the kids go to music, art, PE, SEL, media, all at the same time, and all those, as they go to those teachers, then the grade level teachers have an opportunity to plan together. So that's part of us getting the opportunity to plan together, work with the coaches to help improve instruction in the building.
is that a district level offering or something Sarah Smith does?
Sarah Smith is doing that.
Okay, so like, other schools may not have that.
Yes, definitely not.
Okay, and then the background for that teacher is usually, are they just a general background in education, are they psychologists or?
General background in education, but aware of how to use the second step program as well as some of the components of the SEL.
Thank you.
Okay. So February 17th to the 21st, we'll have cluster superintendent review, staffing conferences from the 24th to the 27th. Final GO Team approval after the meeting, after the staffing conferences on March 14th or by March 14th, and that final vote. And then remember, declare candidacy now for GO Team. I know you've been seeing the messages. And I think you can scan there and get some more information. Actually, I think you can go ahead and declare there and get some information and make your declaration on the QR code that's there.
Or share, I don't know, do we
You're
run
cycling
again?
off.
I don't think you have to
I'm
really.
cycling off.
You're cycling off? You have 2 years.
This is my second.
This is your second year. This is your
My
first
first.
year. So you have another full year.
And I term out in June as well.
And you can't, you have to take a break, right?
I do. I believe so, yes.
Yeah,
Is this your second year?
What did you say?
so he's been on for 4 years, I believe, so I think he has to take a break before he can come back.
I was on before we knew about masks. Let's just.
You are a veteran.
Let's remember that budget discussion. That was quite interesting as well.
About
Anywho.
getting mask?
No, just about like, what do we do? Like, the whole thing
Um,
was nuts. I'm sorry for that editorial, but yes, I roll off on the 30th of.
Okay, any other announcements?
Not at this time.
Okay, we do have, a public comment today. And we set aside 20 minutes for public comment. Each speaker has 2 minutes. Public comment is designed to gain input from the public and not for immediate responses by the GO team to the public comment presented. I think only Kat is the one who signed up for public comment, even though Katie is on the call. Okay.
She remembers.
Kat, are you available still? Do you have public comment? You'll have 2 minutes.
I have a timer.
I am. I'm here.
Let us know when you're ready.
All right. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I want to first start off by saying that I appreciate the work of the GO team and the new support that admin has put in place for students this year. I can see there's been a lot of effort put into tutoring, enrichment, and additional resources. And I know that admin and staff are working on new ways to help students grow as well. I was also encouraged, Mr. Hudson, to hear you talk about the plans for the reserves, especially the potential to bring in more teachers if the funding allows. Looking at the publicly available MAP data for spring of 24, which shows both achievement and growth from spring 23 to 24. I know many of you are probably aware of this, but I was surprised to see how low our school ranked within the cluster. We were 5th out of 6 in math and reading achievement, just ahead of Garden Hills by a small margin. And we had the lowest growth in the cluster and some of the lowest in the district, which made me concerned when thinking about how we support students at all levels. And we'll be interested in seeing the new numbers this spring with some of the things we've put in place this year. Our scores were lower in math than in reading, and so I was encouraged to hear we are hiring a part-time person to focus on working with students in math. As you work through these decisions, I encourage you to focus on class sizes, which I know you are, even if it requires creative solutions. Other schools in our cluster are prioritizing smaller class sizes, and this has been a key selling point for our school, especially when we raise funds for our foundation. If keeping class sizes isn't fully possible, I hope you'll explore different ways like you talked about today, using existing staff, and to provide more targeted student support. I appreciate all the thought that goes into these decisions, and I just ask that this remains a priority as you consider the budget allocations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other announcements?
Just get your training done.
Yep, your budget training.
It literally takes 5 minutes.
Yeah, I did it.
It's super fast.
I kept looking to see if it was on there yet, and it's on there. I did it last week. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
It wasn't on there for us.
yes, yeah, but it's really fast.
I was trying to do it.
I'll do it next week.
and it's not there.
We have reached the end of our agenda. Right, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Thank you, Ms. Moore. A second?
A second.
Thank you, Carla. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. All right, thank you. Meeting is adjourned.
Bye, everybody.
All right, thank you everyone that joined us online, Ms. Gibson, Ms. Barnes, Ms. Gowden.
It's really cold. So cold.
In here?
Oh my gosh. I'm
Oh,
never seen it
yeah.
like it's really cold.
Maybe we move that up next time. I don't know if we can.
Morning. I'm not like, I haven't had a lot of coffee. I'm like very, very cold.
All right, Carla, wish me luck.
Good luck.
Good luck.
I sent you all the things. You got them.
I'll play with it. I'm gonna go home, so I don't have to.
Do we need to
Right.
move the tables? You sure?
Can I unplug this?
Sure.
Yeah, I sent.
Don't forget.
Their video?
The kids, no, it's in there.
Okay.
Like the worksheets that I have, like, they're not insane, but.
That's fine.
What are you doing?
Whenever whenever they do a coffee chat in English, I like to do it.
You translated?
Oh,
Like,
you
The
go.
parents come online and tell me what's up.
And if you need, the notes are like on your slide, like just like. Notes, you know.
I took notes as you were speaking, that's why
I
I
put little
paid
notes
good
in this
attention when you know.
This, yeah, goes together.
Thank you. I think I stopped the recordings.